There's a lot of things in OzLand that you wouldn't see in a typical independent film, especially one that was made for about $10,000, which is what our budget was, a very small amount of money. So we had to be very creative. We had to think about what the story needed, which was a lot of fantastic elements that we had to create or find ways to portray in the film, and that's where Loi Effects came from. Loi Effects is a culmination of the OzLand team. We have Payne, Laura Cabot, myself, and we kind of came together to create some of the fantastic elements that we need in OzLand. We had to pull out every tool we could to bring this fantastic story to life, and something that you can't always do on set. So if you haven't seen the film, be sure to check it out in the links below, because this is a little bit of a spoiler, but we had to use miniatures. This is a miniature version of the Crooked House, aka the Dorothy house, that we used in OzLand. So we took photos from the one in Kansas and we built a two-sided version of it. So the rest of it's just cardboard, Justin Bieber duct tape, and sticks. And since our budget's so small, we only had about $150 to $200 to make this miniature and get these 5 to 6 special effects shots that we needed with the tornado in the house. So we went cheap. We used cardboard, styrofoam, clay, popsicle sticks, and hot glue and duct tape. The first thing I did was make a semi-correct proportional version of the house. We had cardboard and made the basic frame of the roof and the two sides. And then we put siding on it just like a real house, but we used popsicle sticks. And I took that, put it in a bowl of water with fabric dye, and I dyed them for a couple of minutes, pulled them out, and they had the perfect color that looked very similar to what the house was in Kansas. Once they dried, I took the little pieces and cut them into the lengths that I needed for the different parts of the house and hot glued them to the house. And then for the warped portion where it's crooked, I had to wet that wood even longer to where I could bend it and warp it and put that on there to make it look as almost exactly like it was in the regular house, because the more detail we added to it, the more accurate we had it, the more likely you would notice that it was a miniature. The ground around the house is actually styrofoam, where we put the house and mounted it to this piece of styrofoam, and we covered it in clay, and then basically we kind of weaved grass into it by taking old straw, and Laura Cabot would comb it out, and then I would take little pieces and a toothpick and I would slowly weave it into the clay to make the grass. So Laura Cabot and I got together for 2 days of designing, building, constructing, painting, and finalizing the house. And what we did, we put it into a vortex, is what I called it. The vortex was ultimately a doghouse that I flipped upside down and filled it with dirt and debris, bricks. We tied this down with bricks, and we filled it with all this dust, and we put a background image from a photo that I took in Kansas as our background map, and positioned the camera through a little window in this doghouse that made it look like the shot we wanted. And then we took a leaf blower and we would stick a leaf blower into the vortex and have the dirt fly around it. It took us all day of filming. It was raining, we had to deal with lightning, and we were out in my backyard with this vortex trying to get these shots. We probably had 30, 40 shots, and luckily we got the 5 or 6 that we needed out of these little just segments, because we couldn't use most of what we shot because it just wasn't turning out right. The original idea was that the house would break apart, so I didn't make this with any intentions of it staying together. I was hoping the leaf blower would take it and it would just rip apart after we got a couple of shots that we needed so we could get the shots of the house being destroyed. But this thing was pretty strong, so even when the leaf blower was blowing it, some of the breakaway sections would break off, but the actual house was so sturdy that it still survives today. So we just had to be creative and have it where it's washed out and add sound effects to create the idea of the house actually breaking apart, since we couldn't actually break the model. A lot of my favorite films use practical effects, and that's what I want to do in OzLand. I want it to be real. I want us to use practical effects, things that we could afford, things that we could do that would make the film look real and that would achieve these fantastic story elements that we needed to bring the film to life. And through that we used these miniatures, we used puppets, and we used full body suits. You'll see these in other videos, but the miniatures was an exciting one because I've always wanted to shoot a miniature, and we weren't really sure what we were doing, but we hoped it worked out. It took a lot of trial and error and just some dumb luck, but Laura Cabot and I were able to get these shots of these houses that, when you're writing the script, you dream of these things, but you never really know if you're going to be able to bring them to life. And luckily, we did. So be sure to check out OzLand on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, Vudu, Xbox, and pretty soon on DVD, and see how this miniature worked in the film, see if you can pick out which shots were the miniature shots, and let us know what you think. And be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can see more behind the scenes videos for OzLand, my future films, and other things that we're working on. You know, OzLand was just a start. We hope to be doing more and more films like this. So be sure to follow along and check me out on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and all the other social media platforms. Those links are below. And remember that your stories don't have to be limited by your budget. You know, think big, think great, think creatively, and bring those things to life. Have a great day.